Lake Station mayor at the center of a federal investigation is finally having his day in court. This week, prosecutors began presenting their case against Mayor Keith Soderquist and his wife Deborah, who are facing charges of wire fraud and of filing false tax returns. Our partner, the Northwest Indiana Times reporter Ed Bershank, was in court as a former Lake Station contractor took the stand to say that he'd frequently met Soderquist and his wife at a Michigan City casino. The government alleges that the two used campaign funds as well as monies from the Lake Station Food Bank to illegally finance their gambling habit. If convicted, they face up to 20 years in prison and up to $250,000 in fines on each of 7 wire fraud charges. The trial is expected to continue at least through next week. This week, Congressman Pete Visclosky announced the 2015 Financial Award for the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program for Northwest Indiana communities, helping ensure the continued safety of police officers in the region. The award, which is just under $30,000, will provide enough matching federal funding to help buy 85 vests for 12 local law enforcement departments. The vests cost about $800 each, and with dwindling budgets, the financial help is greatly needed. Chesterton, Crown Point, Griffith, Couts, Munster, and Hobart are among the departments receiving funding for the vests.
We get reimbursed 50% on all of our vests. That allows us to equip our officers with new vests every 5 years. After about 5 years, the vests deteriorate, and they're proven to be ineffective to stopping a bullet at that time. So every 5 years, we're on a rotation. We replace all the vests, and thanks to, Congressman Visclosky's generosity, we can do that.
Northwest Indiana police departments have taken part in the Bulletproof Vest Partnership Program for the past 10 years. Governor Mike Pence has used an executive order to combat what he calls the heartbreaking repercussions of substance abuse in the state of Indiana. He announced this week the creation of the Governor's Task Force on Drug Enforcement, Treatment, and Prevention. The governor says his task force will take a holistic approach to dealing with the drug problem, getting statewide assessments of substance abuse and resources for dealing with it, helping law enforcement work to solve the problem more effectively, and focusing on treatment and prevention initiatives. Governor Pence was in Lake County this week to get input about the extent of substance abuse in the region and issuing a warning to dealers.
How do we make sure that the efforts that are happening at the local level are better coordinated with efforts that are happening at the state and even the national level? First and foremost, if you are dealing in drugs in this state, we're coming for you.
We'll meet monthly for the next 3 months on September 16th, October 15th, and November 19th, and will include testimony from local experts and families impacted by the epidemic. Chicago Skyway toll workers have settled their grievances with the owners of the Chicago Skyway, and they will be on the job this Labor Day weekend. This week, Chicago Skyway toll collectors approved a 3-year contract that they say gives them a living wage and new job protections. Teamsters Local 727, which represents the 30 toll collectors, says the new contract includes wage increases and for the first time guarantees full-time positions and limits the Skyway's use of a seasonal workforce.
I think they should get benefits because there's a lot of people who take the Skyway over there downtown or to get to work, and we depend on those people. A lot of people here in Chicago and Indiana take the Skyway.
Everybody ought to be full-time rather than part-time, but they try to do the part-time so that they don't have to pay all the money and pay the benefits and everything.
The contract ratification is a big relief for commuters concerned a threatened strike could mean huge traffic jams for motorists headed in and out of Northwest Indiana this weekend. Finding it hard to fit in is a bummer, but did you know that rejection can actually physically hurt? A series of free events at Merrillville High School seeks to educate adults about the harsh realities of rejection and give them real solutions to bullying and social exclusion. The Purdue Extension pilot program, All In, Building a Positive Community, is one of the first in the state to talk about how rejection can affect an entire community. Purdue Professor of Psychological Sciences, Dr. Kip Williams, says people report feeling ostracized once per day. Williams says his research shows even brief episodes of ostracism can shatter one's sense of self.
We're aware of bullying, and it does exist, and it's fairly frequent enough to really care about, but we're not so aware of ostracism. And it turns out that ostracism is more frequent and in some ways harder to deal with. People need to be aware of the impact of ostracism, social exclusion in the workplace or at school, and be aware that it's as painful, if not more painful, in the long run.
Our own Hillary Powell is on the committee for the All-In pilot program. The group's next event on September 8th will tackle how individuals can build more inclusive connections. State and local officials have taken a big step towards combating flooding on the south side of Chicago and the south suburbs. This week, they cut the ribbon to officially open the Thornton Reservoir. Dubbed the Grand Canyon of the south suburbs, the Thornton Composite Reservoir will prevent $40 million in flooding damage to homeowners and business. The reservoir is now connected to a tunnel system and prepared to hold up to 7.9 billion gallons of water. The reservoir will reduce flooding in the area while preventing pollution in Chicago area waterways. The total cost of the Metropolitan Water Reclamation District of Greater Chicago's Tunnel and Reservoir Plan, or TARP, is $3.8 billion, about half of which came from federal money. The total cost of the Thornton Reservoir is projected at $429 million.
And we know that it's absolutely essential that we have this diversion. When we have huge storms, it inundates the area. It destroys homes. It causes great damage. And what we're trying to do is to mitigate that with an effort which joins the Metropolitan Water and Reclamation District, the Army Corps of Engineers, state agencies, the EPA, and others.
TARP, also known as the Deep Tunnel Project, consists of more than 100 miles of tunnels deep below the surface of the Chicago region and 3 reservoirs designed to capture and hold stormwater and sewage for treatment at water reclamation plants. Organizers are calling the first Taste of East Chicago at its new lakefront venue a big success. The event this past weekend was a treat for Northwest Indiana foodies. It was also an opportunity for the city to show off its renovated beach area, complete with splash pads for the kids and clean new sand. In addition, tastegoers got to enjoy carnival rides and games, arts and craft vendors, and live music. East Chicago Mayor Anthony Copeland took to the town's Facebook page to thank all those who helped organize or attended the event and asked for the community's continued support to make the Taste of East Chicago bigger and better in the future. Some union steelworkers make a big splash in Burns Harbor, and Michael Puente explores the surprising way in which unions and religion have found common ground. Those stories and more coming up right after this.
Lakeshore Report wants to hear from you. Send your thoughts, concerns, questions, and story ideas to tvfeedback@lakeshorepublicmedia.org. You can also reach us on Facebook and Twitter at Lakeshore Report. Make sure to tweet us using the hashtag NWIPride and you may see your comments on air. Lakeshore Report, providing you region-focused content.
Steelworkers from all over the United States converged on Burns Harbor to show their solidarity for union brothers and sisters on the front lines of a contentious contract negotiation. Lakeshore Report's Hillary Powell was there, and she has this story.
They're walking to keep working. This week, thousands of United Steelworkers pounded the pavement in Burns Harbor to speak out about new contracts being negotiated to keep them working at ArcelorMittal and U.S. Steel facilities. They say the theme of their march comes down to
one message, one word, and it was fair contract.
A continue to work agreement is keeping these workers employed after their labor agreement expired September 1st. The labor agreement covers about 30,000 workers nationwide. Workers in the region say their employment affects more than just them.
The communities that are around us, they depend on our wages and our benefits. Our families depend on it.
Though a lot of these people marching are steel workers right now, they say that they are holding signs and wearing T-shirts to support retirees and their children.
When I retire, I want that benefit package to be there. I want my children to be able to work in these mills if that's what they choose to do. They're good paying jobs. They support the community.
A statement from the United Steelworkers says new contracts have been slowed by what they call unfair and unnecessary concessions for retirees and new hires.
Some of these men, ladies, brothers and sisters have been out in these mills for 50 years. At the end of their career, they should have health insurance. Okay, that was part of the deal. We gave up stronger wages for a better insurance package, better medical package, and we took lower wages in the past for that.
Health care benefits, overtime hours, regular hours, not take away any kind of benefits from them. They're trying to just take.
Officials from ArcelorMittal USA say they're unable to discuss confidential details of the contract, but a statement on their website says ultimately the union and the company want the same thing, a successful business through the cycle that provides good job security and industry-leading pay. At this point, union officials say they don't want to stop working, and ArcelorMittal says both sides are at the table talking to avoid work stopping. In Burns Harbor, Hillary Powell, Lakeshore Report.
With Labor Day upon us, a new book is shining a light on the role Christianity has played in the Chicago area labor movement. Author and local history professor Heath Carter contends unionized workers were integral to the development of social Christianity. Professor Carter joins Lakeshore Report's Michael Puente to talk more about his new book.
Well, thank you, Kristen. Well, the new book is titled Union Made, Working People and the Rise of Social Christianity in Chicago. Its author is Valparaiso University history professor, Dr. Heath Carter. And Dr. Carter, thank you for joining us here on Lakeshore Report.
Thank you so much. Delighted to be here.
Well, first of all, what is social Christianity?
Yeah, it's a great question. Social Christianity is a vein of faith that argues that the message of Christianity is not just relevant to individuals, but to all of society, to how we live together in the world.
How does it differ, say, from traditional Christianity?
Yeah. Some Christians have thought that, fundamentally the Christian gospel is about saving individual souls. And the proponents of social Christianity argued that, hey, it's not just about saving souls, it's also about perfecting society, making the world a better place, a place that better reflects God's wishes effectively.
Now, in your book, you wanted to sort of give a spotlight to those who often get overlooked in the rise of social Christianity in Chicago, and that's the working people, correct?
Yeah, that's exactly right. Yeah, typically historians who have told the story of this movement, it was an important movement in the late 19th and early 20th centuries, they've typically focused on the role of ministers and seminary professors. And what I found as I was doing my research is that workers, blacksmiths and seamstresses and glove makers and teamsters and the like were in fact very important in kind of getting this movement going. Partly it was just them thinking about the implications of Christianity for their own lives and for their own experiences and speaking out of that and saying, hey, we believe Jesus is a carpenter, God is on the side of the working people.
But also there was also this sort of pushback by those in the clergy or in the pulpit. They weren't really sure about this rising sort of union movement. There was a lot of pushback, correct?
Yeah, in the early decades of the labor movement, the churches are very nervous at best. Protestant churches often see the unions as a menace to the common good. In many cases, Catholic priests and the hierarchy are concerned that the unions are going to be a gateway into socialism for their people, and so they're very, they may say nice things, but when it comes right down to it and there's a strike, they tend to be very critical.
Now, we do tend to think of Labor Day that's coming up on Monday,
right?
But also there was also another sort of Labor Day back in the 1910s. This kind of grew out of that, correct?
Yeah, I mean, part of the story that I'm telling here is the story of how workers changed the church's mind about labor and about organized labor in particular. And part of the way they do this, the AFL, American Federation of Labor, in 1910, they sponsor Labor Sunday. Across the country, they reach out to churches and say, hey, we want you to devote your worship service the Sunday before Labor Day to worker justice issues. And in fact, they do. And in Chicago and around the country, workers actually preach from the pulpit and tell the gospel according to the unions that Labor Sunday.
Well, what do you want readers to come away with after reading your book?
Yeah, a lot of economists are talking about our time as a second Gilded Age. My book's about the first Gilded Age, the late 19th century. And I think the thing that's so interesting and fascinating about this period is you see people engaged in a vigorous debate about the morality of capitalism. So I think, people who read this book will hear voices that have something to say into our moment. What does Christianity have to say about inequality? What does it have to say about workers getting together, banding together for their own good? So I think that the voices of the past speak into this present moment.
Well, at this present moment, you've got a couple of book signings coming up where you're going to highlight the book. Where are they really quickly?
Yeah, I'll be in Chicago next Tuesday, the day after Labor Day, starting at 6 o'clock at the Haymarket Pub and Brewery in the West Loop. And next Wednesday, the following day, I'll be in Valparaiso at Forefathers Brewery, signing books and talking to people.
So was writing this book a labor of love?
It was a labor of love, absolutely. I enjoyed every minute of it. It's been a delight.
Well, Professor Heath Carter is a history professor at Valparaiso University. He's the author of the new book, Union Made. Professor Carter, thank you for joining us here on Lakeshore Report.
Thanks for having me.
Autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, represents a diverse group of conditions. If researchers can better understand the genetics of ASD, it may be possible to identify and diagnose at-risk children sooner. A new study examined the results of 2 kinds of genetic tests in children diagnosed with ASD. Catherine Dolph has more in this week's JAMA Report.
Owen was diagnosed with autism at 2.5.
He wasn't walking, he didn't talk.
He's much different today. Almost 13, Owen attends school, has plenty of friends, and talks a lot, even surprising his mom with a new word now and then.
A brain and a heart. They're squeezable. I'd never heard him say squeezable before.
Owen participated in a study with more than 250 other children diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder. Dr. Bridget Fernandez from Memorial University in Newfoundland and co-authors used 2 newer genetic tests. The first, chromosomal microarray analysis, was performed on each child. The second, whole exome sequencing on 95 randomly selected children.
16% of the children had an ASD-related genetic finding on either the microarray or the whole exome sequencing.
The children were also closely examined for subtle physical differences and screened for birth defects. They were put into 3 groups based on the severity of these physical differences.
And when we did that, the children in the morphologically complex group, 35% of them had a positive genetic test.
The study appears in JAMA, Journal of the American Medical Association.
In that complex group, the diagnosis of autism was even more delayed than in the children without those types of problems. Sometimes their other problems are detracting from the fact that they have these red flags for autism.
As part of the study, Owen's IQ testing was normal, prompting his mother to send him to school.
But because I knew that he was smart enough, I said, you're going. But now, he's developed into a lovely young man.
If we could understand the underlying genetics more completely, we'd have the possibility to actually identify at-risk children through genetic testing and get earlier diagnosis and improve the outcome.
Catherine Dolph, the JAMA Report.
Twice a month, Lakeshore Report teams up with the Society of Innovators of Northwest Indiana and Ivy Tech Community College Initiative to showcase some of the most forward-thinking ideas the region has to offer. Today, we'd like to introduce you to an initiative called Positive Impact, which has been nothing short of life-changing for some of those who found themselves on the wrong side of the law.
Positive Impact was started in 1992. It's an ex-offender support system. We found that we were releasing individuals from custody, and in some cases, as fast as we were releasing them, they were reoffending. So we came up with the idea maybe we would have ex-offenders mentor offenders. The biggest thing with Positive Impact, we have actually in Lake County Community Corrections hired ex-offenders that were incarcerated with Lake County Community Corrections, but due to the fact that they stayed with Positive Impact for years, they changed their lives, they become productive citizens. We have as many as 5 ex-offenders on our staff.
I was an offender, and it opened my eyes to a lot of things I wouldn't probably have never experienced unless I came here. With me being involved with the other offenders, I was learning and they was learning. They was teaching me and I was teaching them. I didn't know this until later.
It's ex-offenders mentoring offenders and encouraging each other. And I think the current offenders, sometimes they think, well, what am I going to do with the rest of my life? When they look at individuals that were incarcerated and now are successful, then it encourages them that, well, if they did it, I can do it too.
There's a commitment that you have to make within yourself. There's no rules and regulations that miraculously we create. We have to go by what you feel. I already know how I feel. I need to know how you feel, what you thinking about, where you plan on going from this point on. Because see, it's another step for you out there. So we're gonna try to get you as much as we can in here. To see an offender be successful, leave here with a certain amount of pride, knowing that they can make it. That gives me satisfaction beyond belief.
In the criminal justice field, even in our own agency at one time, you characterize people as offenders, and people are hesitant to give people a chance once they come out of incarceration. Positive impact helps individuals get employment, it provides assistance, it works with the individual years after their incarceration, and it supports them to be successful.
If it wasn't for the community, it wouldn't be no positive impact. Those people are community people. They from our communities. They just happen to make a mistake, end up in trouble. And we're here to help. Help through the system, get them out of trouble, get them to start their lives all over again and go back. Okay, you made a mistake. We don't dwell on that.
Not moving.
We deal on the future of them.
For more information on any of our stories, you can go to lakeshorepublicmedia.org. Thank you so much for joining us. We hope to see you next time on Lakeshore Report.
Hi, joining me for this edition of Eye on the Arts is Matt Valukas, who is a man of many talents, Mr. Pierogi being one of them, I understand. That's pretty exciting. But Matt is here this evening to represent the Crown Point Community Theater.
Yes.
You are the board president of
Yes,
the Crown
indeed.
Point Community Theater. I think you get a grant from South Shore Arts.
We sure do, and we're grateful for it. Absolutely.
Yeah, it just occurred to me you're one of our
Yes, indeed.
grantees with our Indiana Arts Commission money. Well, Matt, you have, how long have you been involved with Crown Point Community Theater?
For a number of years. This is my first year of president at the theater. We're just celebrating our 12th season, so we've been around for quite a while. And we're kicking it off with Picasso at the La Panagio, a play by Steve Martin, which we're very, very excited about.
I saw that play when it first premiered, like what have that been about 25 years ago?
About 25 years, yes.
Yeah. And I think I've seen it once since then. Well, that'll be good. And you're going to be performing this where, at your building?
Yes, at our location, which is 1125 Maryville Road. We're right behind the Jewel Osco on the backside.
Well, why don't you tell the audience about the plot of Picasso? At the
It's a very exciting show. It's an imaginary meeting of Picasso and Einstein in a bar in Paris in 1904. And it happens just before they have their big discoveries, right before Einstein publishes the theory of relativity, and Picasso moves from the blue period. He paints the painting of the five women, and it's his big cubist move. So it's right before that moment, and it's the two of them realizing that they're going to shape the 20th century. It's a very self-aware play. The audience gets involved a little bit. They break the fourth wall. We have a visitor at the end of the play who is never really named, but he's a Southern boy who wears blue suede shoes. So it's a little bit surreal, but it's incredibly funny. Steve Martin, the actor, did a wonderful job with this play, and we're just incredibly excited to have it kick off our 12th season.
I can't remember how large the cast is of this play.
It is 9 people, but there is one part that is played by, it's 3 women, that's played by 1 woman, 1 actress in the show itself. So there's a lot of fun interaction. There are a couple little bit parts in there that kind of come and go. There are some larger parts of actors that are on stage the whole time, but it's 9 people, and they do a fantastic job of just filling up the space.
It's a comedy.
Absolutely, it's a comedy.
It's being by Steve Martin. I guess that is sort of obvious. But
yes, but it's also very cerebral at the same time, so there's a lot to think about with the play.
What else is in store with Crown Point Community Theater this year?
Well, we're after that, we're doing the last 5 years. We are presenting a family show at Christmas time called The Worst Christmas Pageant Ever.
Oh, I love that idea.
We're doing, as we always do, a play in January at the courthouse. So we're doing Gilbert and Sullivan this year. We're doing, I believe it's Trial by Jury. We're doing No Exit, we're doing Assassins, we're doing One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest. But in addition to that, we also offer acting classes. We have an improv troupe called Makeshift Up that we just debuted earlier this year. So we have improv classes galore. So there's plenty of opportunities to get involved in the arts here in Crown Point, and we're so excited to bring that opportunity here.
And are you in some of the plays?
I am not. I am directing Picasso at the La Panagile. And then my wife is having a baby in October, so that kind of takes me out of the loop on stage-wise for the rest of the year.
All right. Well, thanks for being here. Good luck with the show.
Thank you.
Good to see you, Matt.
Likewise.
Thank you for watching. We'll be back again next week with another edition of Eye on the Arts. Eye on the Arts is made possible in part by South Shore Arts, the Indiana Arts Commission, and the National Endowment for the Arts, a federal agency.